Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan is here. You can get the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms. And don't forget their YouTube channel. Just search for Inside the Birds. Adam Caplan is here. And as we talked about earlier, Chris Canty said he thinks the Commanders could be the surprise NFC East champion. We're going to go around the NFC East and get Adam Caplan's thoughts on that. The Giants, the Commanders, and the Cowboys will give him a chance to give some thoughts on the Eagles as they get ready for the Vikings on Friday's show, as he joins us now for another edition of Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan, I feel like it's been a while, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. Yeah, I guess you were away for a week. In fact, I was in Nashville last week. I was seeing the Titans hosting the Seahawks for 2 days, so it was good to be there. I enjoyed I've been to Nashville before, but never downtown Nashville, actually. Greg Cosell and I, I'm sure you know Greg from NFL Films. We had lunch, and it's called Broadway. It was pretty cool. I had not been in that area where every restaurant has live music. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I was there about a year or so ago. Really liked it, and that team Titans team might be better than people give them credit for. We'll see. But let's look at the NFC East here. Yep. Let's go. Let's start with the Giants, who have been on Hard Knocks. So a lot of people have been talking about them. We saw Daniel Jones struggle the other day. Where are the Giants with Daniel Jones? Give us an update on that situation.
Yeah, I'll say this about Daniel Jones. I know the first quarter was bad. Okay, he threw 2 picks, but then he actually talked about this after the game. He got more comfortable, and of course, the guy that he's played with ever since he was drafted is Darius Slayton, who's really could run. Darius Slayton has had some good games against the Eagles over the years. Slayton was a 5th rounder in 19, and Jones, of course, was a 1st rounder in 2019. So they hooked up for a 44-yarder. Now, I could tell you from being with the Giants when they were with the Lions and talked to some people there, Jones looks healthy, and his movement is good. He's running, because you always knew that was part of his game, and the Eagles know this, his ability to run, particularly when the pocket breaks down. Now, the question for him is, will they design runs? Because he's still, obviously, he had a major knee injury, an ACL injury in last November. So we'll see if they do that. But, Mike, they've addressed their offensive line. Jermaine Illuminor, who will be the right tackle. I don't think it's going to be Evan Neal, though they'd want it to be. I can't see that happening. He's also come back from injury. They got John Runyon Jr. It's going to be their left guard. Andrew Thomas is finally healthy. He had major hamstring problems last season. Their offensive line was in shambles. John Michael Schmitz, who's their second-year center. So they've addressed Greg Van Roten. Greg Van Roten, by the way, he might wind up starting at right guard. For those of you who might remember his career at the University of Pennsylvania, he's a true journeyman. It's been in the league as a former undrafted free agent for the Packers in 2012, and he's been with 7 football teams. And right now, they just signed him about a month ago. He might wind up being their right guard. So they've revamped their offensive line, 3 new starters, Mike. And the other part about their offense before we look at their defense is they've got speed. Malik Neighbors is terrific, their first-round pick. Jalen Hyatt could run. I mentioned Slayton's ability to get downfield. And Wan'Dale Robinson is finally healthy, come back from an ACL injury from a couple years ago. So speed is not the problem. It's really playmakers, and they've got to get to the playmakers. And by the way, they have a major change, obviously, at running back with Barkley with the Eagles. And Devin Singletary is coming back from a career year with the Texans. Texans didn't want him, though, folks. He's now the Giants' starting running back.
Yeah, some interesting pieces down there with the Giants. Of course, the running back, Barkley, no longer there. And we'll see if Daniel Jones can kind of carry that offense. Now, I love Neighbors. I think Neighbors, man, if he had a better offensive situation, he would be a fun guy to watch. I think he's going to be really good. They made a big deal on defense getting Burns, and that's a pretty good defense.
Yeah, and I could tell you when I watched them practice, they now have a true speed rusher. Brian Burns is one of the better speed rushers in the National Football League. When he was drafted, by the way, actually, when he went to the Combine, the year that he came out of Florida State in 2019, he was a first rounder for the Panthers, 16th overall. He was between 228 and 232. Now he's about 250. He's a terrific football player, and you team him up with Thibodeau, who's bigger physically, with Dexter Lawrence up front. Now you've got guys who could rush the passer. The problem was last season at corner they weren't very good. I could tell you from being around the Giants at their training camp, They're pretty high on Andrew Phillips, or his nickname is Drew Phillips, who'll probably be their nickel corner out of Kentucky. I mentioned Deontay Banks out of Maryland, who was their first-round pick. And they're trying to figure out who the corner is going to be opposite Banks, and that's a problem. I could tell you that's a problem for them. That's an area where if you're the Eagles, if you could protect, and the Eagles should be able to protect because their offensive line should be very good, you want to go whoever's going to play opposite Deontay Banks at cornerback.
All right, Adam Caplan, let's go to the Commanders. They're an interesting team to me. You know, Chris Canty this morning on Unsportsmanlike said he thinks that they could win the NFC East if Daniels, kind of has that breakout rookie season. He was named the starter yesterday, but do they have enough around him that even if he has, let's just say he has a C.J. Stroud type of rookie year, do they have enough?
That's a good way to say it, Mike. Being with them earlier in training camp and knowing that team pretty well and talking to people there, they got a couple problems in offense. So it's not a secret that they were in on the Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes. Going back to the draft, Mike, I was told that they had a lot of interest in Ayuk. They just were not willing to give up what it would take and do another major contract. Remember, they're paying Terry McLaurin well over $20 million a season, but they definitely had interest in Ayuk. So my sense is, Mike, I don't think this front office, this coaching staff is super enthused with Jahan Dotson, who they inherited, who's a first-rounder at Penn State 2 years ago, who got off to a great start, then a hamstring problem, and he hasn't really done much. By the way, Olamide Zaccheaus has got a very good chance, a former Eagle, to be their third receiver, Mike. That's kind of surprised me, which obviously tells you that they're not very deep at receiver, but the Eagles didn't give him a chance last season. Boy, the Eagles, Mike, right now could use a number 3 receiver like Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah, we know that's a big question that they still need answered. Saturday, the final chance to get there. Commanders' offensive line could be a problem as well for them. I mean, that's another thing for this team.
Yep. Well, I could tell you what, they love Sam Cosmi, number 76, who played tackle in college, is playing right guard for them. When this new staff came in, they made a decision they're going to leave him there. He's by far their best lineman. Tyler Biadasz comes over from Dallas. And Nick Allegretti, who was a free agent signee, my sense is you'd rather be a backup, the top backup guard, but he's going to start. And Brandon Coleman, I'm told, is going to be their left tackle, most likely. The Eagles, by the way, really liked him. He was a left tackle in college who is a guard left tackle. He's not super tall, but he's got enough length to play left tackle at this level. He's just over 6'4". I know some teams saw him as a guard. It's just not a great offensive line, Mike, overall, as you mentioned this. Andrew Wiley's going to most likely be the right tackle. Depth is just okay. This is a beatable offensive line. It's not going to be great for them. You mentioned, is it good enough to protect Daniels? Daniels is pretty mobile. Very good processor, by the way. That's what I'm told. And by the way, the Giants, Mike, if you saw Hard Knocks, Giants let that out. I was kind of surprised. I thought there was great drama and great television. They would love to have traded up for Daniels. They could not get him. Washington was not going to get out of that number 2 spot, so they couldn't get him. But Brian Robinson's their running back. Eckler will back him up. This offense has some upside, but I have some questions. You and I see it the same way. And I get it. Every interview I've been asked about, could the Commanders be that team that no one's talking about? And like the Jaguars 2 years ago and like the Texans last year. No, I just don't think the roster is good enough. The Texans roster, by the way, is pretty good.
Yeah, the Texans certainly upgraded. Their schedule's a little bit more difficult. I just don't see, even at the ceiling, Stroud had an amazing year, and they won 10 games. I don't know that the Commanders' ceiling is 10, and I don't know that 10 is enough to win the division. If they get to 10, they had a really good season, and I'd be surprised. Let's look at their defense. For years, they had a lot of talent on that side of the ball, a lot of first-round picks up front. Where are they now?
Yeah, the edge rushers are gone. So Cleveland Farrell, he was a bust for the Raiders as a first-round pick, played well for the Niners, got a decent free agent contract. He just was severely overdrafted. He should have been a second-round pick, but him and Dorrance Armstrong, obviously Armstrong's there because of Dan Quinn. Armstrong played for Dan Quinn, who was the D coordinator for the Cowboys. Love my guy Frankie Louvu, who's going to be their weak side linebacker. Bobby Wagner, in the twilight of his career, is going to be a Hall of Famer. I could tell you, for being around the Commanders, they love Louvu's ability to rush the passer. He can blitz. He could cover. What a great story he's been, coming over from the Panthers. Started his career with the Jets as an undrafted free agent in 2018. just a really underrated football player who's kind of hung in there and got a nice free agent deal. Now, their secondary's got major question marks. They have enough depth at corner, but they got housed last year. They gave up a lot of big plays. They're really good at safety, they think. Jeremy Chin, who the Eagles liked last year and the year before, they actually looked to trade for him before he tore his Achilles. He's a very good. Wasn't an Achilles. I forget what I don't think it was a torn Achilles. I know he had a bad injury, but Mike, this is a defense in the secondary. If you could protect, you could get these guys. I'm not convinced that they're good enough at corner, so that's a defense that you can get. Now, to me, they're a 7-win team, maybe 8, if Daniels lights it up.
All right, Cowboys, obviously, they got holdouts. Is that going to get resolved? And if not, how does that loom over this season?
Yeah, it's not good when you're CeeDee Lamb, who was the NFL's number 1 receiver last year in terms of production, just a crazy season. What I always get from coaches is they don't like it that they're away from the team because, sure, you could think you're in good physical shape by working out on your own, but you're not. They don't know if you're in football shape. You're not around the training staff. That's not good, Mike. That's not good. Now, the other thing is, Mike, they don't really look. Ezekiel Elliott's their starter, and he didn't do badly for New England. Don't let the yards per carry fool you. He had a lot of short yardage carries, but Mike, he should be a number 2 running back. That's going to put a lot on Dak Prescott. You know, Brandon Cooks, who the Eagles loved many, many years ago, Mike. The Eagles were probably going to draft him in 2014, but it's funny. Then they would face him in the Super Bowl with New England. You remember what happened? He got knocked out of the game on that hard hit. Cooks is still pretty good. He turns 31 next month, but they don't have a lot of depth, so that would worry me about Lamb coming in late. He'll get his contract. One way or the other, it's going to get done. Offensive line's pretty good. Tyler Guyton's is going to play left tackle for them. A lot of teams thought he's more of a right tackle. New defense under Mike Zimmer, who runs a completely different defense from Dan Quinn. He runs an old school 43 front with old friend Paul Gunther. Paul. I know he's been on your show. Paul is Zimmer's right hand man. They brought in the double A gap blitzes when they were together many years ago in Minnesota. You know that's going to come here, and look, they've got a revamped secondary. Diggs is back from his ACL injury. This defense will be better. They're going to be more disciplined on Mike Zimmer. They're going to be a factor, but remember now, no one's won that division back-to-back since 2004.
All right, that is the NFC East, a little look around there. And, obviously, Adam, you take a look at Lamb holding out, Dak Prescott, that whole situation still not resolved. So this could loom over the Cowboys. You mentioned the running back issues. You got a new defensive play caller there. But talent-wise, I just want to are the Cowboys, they've been a very talented team. They just, for whatever reason, is this team not as talented as the last couple Cowboys incarnations?
Well, they weren't good against the run, undisciplined. They've not been good against the run for years. I know Mike Zimmer. I remember Zimmer telling me many years ago that the first thing with defensive line was technique. He didn't care who it was. If they didn't play the right way, he wouldn't play the guys, and that's the way Zim is. I'm interested to see. Michael Parsons said that they're moving him around a little bit. That's going to be fascinating. Eric Kendricks, who played for Zim with the Vikings, who's in the twilight of his career, you might remember his older brother Michael, former Eagles linebacker. They're kind of small at linebacker, Mike. I'll tell you what, if you can get to the second level, you'll be able to run against this team. It's just, can they get the pass rush going with DeMarcus Lawrence, another guy from the 14 draft, in the twilight of his career, a lot of injuries in his career. Parsons needs to get his contract, Mike. Always something with the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, and contracts. It never ends with them. Every year it happens.
Adam Caplan, everybody. He'll be back Friday. The Eagles have a rare Saturday afternoon preseason game.
Weird one.
We'll get his thoughts on that on Friday. Who is he looking for? Who needs to have a big day? That's coming up Friday on Football at 4. For now, Adam Caplan, appreciate it, bud.
All right, man, thanks.
There you go. Adam Caplan, Football at 4 here on the Sports Pass Live on 97.3 ESPN.